Captain Lee Dae-hyun stood on the bridge of Earth Defense Station Harmony, watching the strange blue ship approach through space. The vessel looked like a giant sea creature swimming through the stars. Its hull curved and flowed like water, and small lights flickered along its sides like bioluminescent fish. "Sir, they're sending a message," said Commander Koo Ji-won from her station. It's in Korean," Dae-hyun raised an eyebrow. "Korean? How do they know our language?" "They must have intercepted our broadcasts," said Dr. Park Min-ju, the station's xenobiologist. She hurried onto the bridge, her tablet in hand. "This is incredible. First contact with an alien species and they're trying to communicate in our language." The main screen flickered to life. A tall, thin creature appeared. Its skin was pale blue and seemed to shimmer like water. It had large, dark eyes and what looked like gills on the sides of its neck. When it spoke, its voice was melodic but strange. "Greetings, people of Earth," the alien said in broken Korean. "I am Ambassador Veltar of the Tethys Empire. We come in peace to welcome you to the galaxy." Dae-hyun stepped forward. "Welcome, Ambassador Veltar. I am Captain Lee Dae-hyun of the Earth Defense Forces. We are honored by your visit." Veltar's large eyes blinked slowly. "We represent the Galactic Federation. 47 different species live together in peace. We explore space looking for new friends to join us." Dr. Park moved closer to the screen. "This is amazing. How long has the Federation existed?" "Over 3,000 Earth years," Veltar replied. "We have learned that peace is better than war. All our member species agree on this." Ji-won frowned slightly. "All species? That seems unusual." "Not unusual," Veltar said. "Natural. Most intelligent life learns that violence brings only death and suffering. Cooperation brings prosperity and happiness." Dae-hyun nodded politely, but something in the alien's tone made him uncomfortable. It sounded almost like the ambassador was lecturing them. "We would like to learn more about your species," Veltar continued. "May we study your history and culture? This will help us determine if Earth is ready to join the Federation." "Of course," Dae-hyun said. "Dr. Park can provide you with our historical records." Min-ju stepped forward eagerly. "I've prepared extensive files on human civilization, our development, our achievements in science and art." "Excellent," Veltar said. "We will study these carefully. In return, let me tell you about the Federation. We are primarily aquatic like my people, the Tethys. There are also the Zephyrians, who evolved from insect-like creatures but are now peaceful farmers. The Sorans are reptilian but gentle herbivores. The Ethereals are energy beings who spend their time in meditation and philosophy." As Veltar spoke, Dae-hyun noticed a pattern. Every species the ambassador mentioned seemed to be naturally peaceful. No warriors, no hunters, no fighters. It made him wonder about humanity's place in such a galaxy. Several hours passed. The human delegation waited in the station's conference room, while Ambassador Veltar and his team reviewed the historical files. Dae-hyun paced nervously while Min-ju sat at the table organizing more documents. "Do you think we made a good impression?" Min-ju asked. "Hard to say," Ji-won replied. "They seem different from what I expected." "Different how?" Dae-hyun asked. Ji-won shrugged. "Too peaceful, maybe? Like they've never faced real danger." Before anyone could respond, the communication system activated. Veltar's image appeared on the screen, but his expression had changed. The friendly curiosity was gone, replaced by something that looked like concern or even fear. "Captain Dae-hyun," Veltar said slowly, "we have reviewed your historical records. We have questions." "What kind of questions?" Dae-hyun asked, sitting down at the table. Veltar's gills fluttered nervously. "Your species has engaged in warfare for thousands of years. Multiple global conflicts. Weapons capable of destroying entire planets. This is unprecedented." Min-ju leaned forward. "But we've moved beyond that. We've learned from our mistakes. We've had peace on Earth for over 2 centuries now." "Yes, but..." Veltar paused, clearly struggling with something. "Your records show that humans evolved as hunters, predators. You killed other animals for food. Many species are carnivorous," Dae-hyun said carefully. "Not intelligent species," Veltar replied. "Every member of the Federation evolved from prey animals or plant eaters. We learned cooperation because we needed it to survive. You learned to hunt and kill." The room fell silent. Dae-hyun could see where this was going and he didn't like it. "Ambassador," Min-ju said gently, "humans are capable of great compassion and cooperation. Yes, we have a violent past, but we've grown beyond it." Veltar's large eyes blinked several times. According to your records, humans can run for hours without stopping. Your bone density is 3 times that of my people. Your muscle strength is alarming. And your tolerance for pain and injury is beyond what we thought possible for any intelligent species. Jiwan crossed her arms. Are you saying we're too strong to join your federation? I am saying, Veltar replied carefully, that no species in the Federation has ever encountered anything like humanity. You are predators who became civilized, but you retained all your predatory abilities. Daehyun stood up slowly. What exactly are you trying to tell us, Ambassador? Veltar was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. My people will need to report back to the Federation Council. This decision is beyond my authority. What decision? Minju asked. Whether humanity represents an opportunity for friendship, Veltar said, or a threat to galactic peace. The communication ended abruptly, leaving the 3 humans staring at a blank screen. Well, Jiwan said after a long pause. That went well. Daehyun shook his head. I think we just learned something important about the galaxy. We're not just different from them. We're something they've never seen before. Is that good or bad? Minju asked. I guess we'll find out, Daehyun replied, looking out at the stars where the blue alien ship was already preparing to leave. Outside, the Tethys vessel Deep Current began its journey back to Federation space. In its data banks, it carried files that would change everything. The message it sent ahead was simple but terrifying to those who received it. Species designation: Terran. Classification unknown. Recommendation: extreme caution required. These beings may be the galaxy's first intelligent predators. Admiral Yang Songho adjusted his dress uniform as the transport ship approached Nexus Prime, the massive space station that served as the Federation's capital. Through the viewport, he could see dozens of alien vessels docked at various ports. The station itself was beautiful, built like a crystal flower floating in space. Nervous, sir? Asked Specialist Choi Hyeben, who sat across from him in the passenger cabin. A little, Yang admitted. This could determine humanity's future in the galaxy. Hyeben nodded. She was young, only 26, but Yang had chosen her carefully for this mission. She was smart, strong, and most importantly, she represented what humans considered average. If the Federation wanted to test human capabilities, they would get a true sample. The docking procedure was smooth, and soon Yang found himself walking through corridors filled with the strangest collection of beings he had ever seen. Tall, graceful creatures with crystalline skin glided past. Insect-like beings with multiple arms clicked and chittered to each other. A group of furry, bear-like aliens discussed something in deep, rumbling voices. Admiral Yang, came a familiar voice. Ambassador Veltar approached, but he seemed different somehow. More careful, more formal. Ambassador, Yang replied with a slight bow. Thank you for arranging this meeting. The Federation Council is eager to meet humanity, Veltar said, though his tone suggested this might not be entirely positive. Please follow me. They walked through more corridors until they reached a massive circular chamber. The ceiling stretched high above, and tiered seating surrounded a central platform. Dozens of different alien species filled the seats, all watching as Yang and his small human delegation entered. At the highest tier sat a creature unlike any Yang had seen. It was tall and thin with compound eyes like an insect, but its posture was regal and commanding. When it spoke, its voice carried clearly through the chamber. I am High Arbiter Quental, the creature said. Welcome to the Federation Council, humans of Earth. Yang stepped forward. Thank you for this opportunity, High Arbiter. Humanity is honored to be considered for membership. Consideration is the appropriate word, Quental replied. Never before has the Council encountered a species with your unique background. Therefore, we must subject you to the compatibility trials. What do these trials involve? Yang asked. Another alien stood up. This one was massive, covered in thick brown fur with claws and teeth that marked it as the closest thing to a predator Yang had seen among the Federation species. But even this creature seemed gentle compared to what humans were capable of. I am Warsinger Throck of the Brumal, the alien said in a deep voice. For 500 years, no being has matched me in physical combat. I will test your warrior's strength. Yang looked back at Hyeben, who gave a small nod. She had volunteered for this, knowing it might be necessary. The trials began with tests of intelligence. Human problem-solving abilities impressed the Council, but nothing more than that. Many Federation species were equally clever. The empathy tests showed that humans could understand and care for other beings, which seemed to relieve some of the Council's concerns. Then came the physical trials. A massive arena was prepared in the lower levels of the station. Hundreds of aliens gathered to watch as Choi Hyeben faced Warsinger Throck. The Brumal warrior was twice her size and had never lost a fight. To the Federation, he represented the peak of physical capability. Hyeben stood in the center of the arena, looking small and fragile next to the massive alien. She wore simple exercise clothes and had no weapons. Neither did Throck, but his claws and natural armor made him seem invincible. "Begin," announced High Arbiter Quental. Throck moved first, lunging forward with surprising speed for such a large creature. His claws swept toward Hyeben's head in a move that would have ended the fight against any Federation opponent. But Hyeben wasn't there anymore. She had dropped low and rolled to the side, moving with a speed and precision that made the watching aliens gasp. Throck's claws hit nothing but air. The Brumal warrior turned, confused. In his 5 centuries of fighting, no opponent had ever moved that fast. Hyeben circled him, staying just out of reach. Her movements were fluid and controlled like a dancer, but Yang could see the calculation in her eyes. She was studying her opponent, learning his patterns. Throck charged again, this time trying to grab her with his massive arms. Hyeben jumped, using his own momentum against him. She landed on his back and wrapped her arm around his thick neck. The alien arena fell completely silent. For 30 seconds, Throck thrashed and struggled. He was stronger than Hyeben by far, but she had positioned herself perfectly. Her arm compressed the blood vessels in his neck, cutting off circulation to his brain. It was a move that required precise knowledge of anatomy and perfect timing. Throck's struggles grew weaker. Finally, he tapped the ground with his claw, the universal signal of surrender. Hyeben released him immediately and helped him to his feet. Throck stared at her in amazement. "How?" he asked simply. "Training," Hyeben replied, "and knowing where the weak points are." The silence in the arena stretched on. Finally, High Arbiter Quental spoke, and Yang could hear the shock in the alien's voice. "In 500 years," Quental said slowly, "no being has defeated Warsinger Throck in single combat." Yang stepped forward. "Specialist Choi is a good soldier, but she represents average human capability. Most of our people could do what she just did." The reaction was immediate. Dozens of alien voices rose in alarm, fear, and confusion. The council chamber erupted into chaos. "Order," Quental commanded. "Order in this chamber." When quiet returned, the High Arbiter looked directly at Yang. "Admiral, you are telling us that this demonstration represents normal human ability?" "Yes," Yang replied honestly. "Hyeben is well trained, but not exceptional by our standards." Another alien stood up, this one tall and graceful with skin like polished silver. "I am Fleet Admiral Zeftara of the Ethereals." "Admiral Yang, your species concerns us greatly. If what we have seen is typical, then humans possess physical capabilities that exceed our greatest warriors by significant margins." Yang realized the situation was becoming dangerous. "Fleet Admiral, we don't seek to dominate anyone. We want to join the Federation as equals, to contribute to galactic peace and Dirung." "But can you?" asked another voice. "Can a species of natural predators truly embrace peace?" More arguments broke out. Some aliens called for immediate rejection of humanity's application. Others demanded more tests. A few suggested that humans might be useful as a military force, which only made the arguments louder. High Arbiter Quental finally restored order by threatening to clear the chamber. When silence returned, the aliens' compound eyes fixed on Yang. "Admiral Yang," Quental said, "the Federation will need time to consider what we have learned today. You and your delegation will remain on Nexus Prime as our guests while we deliberate." "Of course," Yang replied, though he noticed the armed guards that had appeared at the chamber's exits. As the council session ended, and aliens filed out in small groups, Yang heard fragments of worried conversations. Words like dangerous and unprecedented and threat kept coming up. Veltar approached as the chamber emptied. "Admiral, I must be honest with you. Many council members are frightened by what they've seen today." "We're not monsters," Yang said quietly. "No," Veltar agreed, "but you're something the galaxy has never encountered before. A species that evolved to kill, but chose to cooperate instead. Some see that as admirable, Others see it as terrifying. Yang looked around the empty chamber, then back at the Tethys ambassador. What happens now? Beltar's gills fluttered nervously. Now the Council decides whether humanity represents the galaxy's greatest hope for protection against unknown threats, or whether you are the unknown threat we need protection from. The fate of two species hung in the balance, and Yang wasn't sure which way it would fall. Captain Nam Jaesung floated in his reconnaissance pod, watching the dead system through his sensors. 3 months had passed since the trials at Nexus Prime, and everything had changed. The Federation Council was still debating humanity's membership when the long-range warning stations detected something that made them forget all their fears about humans. The Devourer swarm had awakened, scanning. "The third planet now," reported Lieutenant Bei Suman from her position at the sensor array. "Sir, you need to see this." Nam activated his display and immediately understood why entire Federation fleets had fled in terror. The planet's surface was covered in a black moving carpet that pulsed with its own rhythm. Massive structures rose from the ground like twisted metal trees, and between them moved shapes that defied easy description. "Those are Devourer constructs," Suman said quietly. "The files from the Federation database don't do them justice." Nam nodded grimly. The Devourers had appeared at the galaxy's edge 300 years ago, consuming 3 entire star systems before mysteriously going dormant. Federation scientists had hoped they were extinct. They were wrong. "Look at the orbital patterns," Nam said, pointing to his tactical display. "They're not random. They're preparing for something." Through his scope, Nam watched as thousands of sleek black shapes launched from the planet's surface. The Devourer ships moved with purpose, forming into perfect geometric patterns that spoke of a single, controlling intelligence. "Sir," Suman said, her voice tense, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the planet's core. Whatever they're building down there, it's big." Nam made his decision. "Take us closer. I want detailed scans of their ship designs and movement patterns." "Sir, Federation protocol says to maintain safe distance and report back immediately." "Federation protocol assumes their enemies think like they do," Nam replied. "These things don't think like anything we've encountered before. We need to understand how they operate." The reconnaissance pod moved deeper into the system, using asteroid fields for cover. Nam had learned stealth techniques during humanity's last small conflicts, skills that Federation species had never needed to develop. His ship was virtually invisible to most sensors. As they approached the 4th planet, more details became clear. The Devourer constructs weren't just ships. They were living machines that adapted and changed as they moved. Nam watched in fascination as one vessel literally grew new weapons while he observed it. "They're evolving in real time," Suman whispered. "Sir, that's impossible." "Not impossible," Nam said. "Just something we've never seen before." His communication system activated with an urgent message from Director Wan Tae-wan back at Federation Command. Nam accepted the encrypted transmission. "Captain Nam, what's your status?" Wan's voice was tight with stress. "We're observing Devourer activities in the Kepler system," Nam reported. "Sir, these beings are unlike anything in the Federation database. They're not just using technology, they are the technology." "Explain." Nam sent his scan data while he spoke. "Their ships are biological constructs that adapt to threats in real time. They've already developed countermeasures against Federation energy weapons, and they haven't even fought us yet." Director Wan was quiet for a long moment. "Captain, Federation High Command is in complete panic. Their military analysts predict total defeat within 6 months. They're asking for our help." "Our help?" Nam asked. "I thought they were still debating whether to accept us." "Fear changes perspectives quickly," Wan replied. "Admiral Yang is meeting with the Federation Council in 2 hours. They want to know if humanity is willing to lead the defense against the Devourers." Nam looked back at his display, where thousands of alien war machines continued their mysterious preparations. "Sir, I think they're making a mistake asking us to lead." "Why?" "Because I don't think this is a war that can be won through leadership," Nam said. "This is a war that can only be won by becoming something the enemy has never faced before." The transmission ended, leaving Nam and Suman alone with their observations. For another hour, they watched the Devourers work. Slowly, a pattern emerged. "They're studying us," Suman said suddenly. "Look at the probe formations. They're not preparing for immediate attack. They're learning how Federation forces operate, how their ships move, how their weapons work. Nam studied the tactical display and realized she was right. The Devourers weren't rushing to attack because they didn't need to. They had already faced Federation forces 300 years ago and learned everything they needed to know. They're adapting to fight the same enemy they faced before, Nam said slowly. But we're not the same enemy, sir. Nam activated his ship's recording system. Lieutenant, I want you to document everything we're seeing here. Every ship type, every formation, every behavioral pattern. Yes, sir, but why? Nam smiled grimly. Because we're going to give the Federation something they've never had before. An enemy the Devourers have never studied. 2 hours later, back at Nexus Prime, Admiral Yang stood before the Federation Council once again. But this time, the atmosphere was completely different. Fear had replaced suspicion, and desperate hope had replaced caution. High Arbiter Quintal addressed the chamber. Admiral Yang, long-range sensors confirm that the Devourer swarm is mobilizing across 14 star systems. Our military analysts believe they will begin their assault within weeks. Yang stepped forward. What do you need from humanity? Everything, Fleet Admiral Zeftera said simply. Our defenses are built around energy shields and precision weapons. The Devourers have already adapted to counter these technologies. We need new strategies, new tactics, new ways of thinking about warfare. Yang looked around the chamber at faces, or the alien equivalents, filled with fear. You're asking us to become what you were afraid we already were. Yes, Quintal said without hesitation. We're asking you to be the predators you evolved to be because we need predators to hunt the ultimate predator. Yang was quiet for a moment, thinking about Captain Nam's report and what it meant. Very well. But if we do this, we do it our way. Human commanders, human tactics, human rules of engagement. Anything, Zeftera said. What do you need? Time to prepare, access to all Federation military resources, and the understanding that humans fight differently than you do, Yang replied. We don't fight to minimize casualties. We fight to win. The chamber fell silent. Finally, Quintal spoke. Admiral Yang, the Federation places itself under human protection. May whatever gods you believe in help us all. Yang nodded solemnly. High Arbiter, you're about to learn why humans are the galaxy's strongest warriors. It's not because we're the toughest or the smartest. Then why? Asked Veltar. Yang's expression grew hard. Because we're the only species in the galaxy that learned how to be afraid of the right things, and how to keep fighting anyway. In the depths of space, the Devourer swarm continued its preparations, confident in its coming victory. It had faced the Federation before and found them predictable, manageable, ultimately consumable, but it had never faced humanity. And humanity had never faced anything it couldn't find a way to kill. The Kepler defense line stretched across 3 star systems, representing the largest military buildup in Federation history. Colonel Go Minsu stood on the bridge of the command ship Unity, watching the mixed human-alien fleet take positions. It was a sight that would have been impossible just months ago. Colonel, reported his aide, Admiral Zeftara is requesting another review of the battle plan. She seems concerned about our tactics. Minsu wasn't surprised. The elegant ethereal commander had been questioning human military doctrine since the joint training began. Federation forces were used to clean, precise engagements with minimal casualties. Human warfare was messier, more brutal, and often involved what aliens considered unacceptable losses. Tell the Admiral I'll speak with her shortly, Minsu said. Any word from Sergeant Kim's boarding teams? They've completed their modifications to the Federation assault shuttles. She reports they're ready for close-quarters combat operations. Minsu nodded. Sergeant Kim Da-hyun had taken Federation boarding craft, designed for peaceful inspections and emergency rescues, and turned them into weapons of war. The modifications horrified alien engineers, but they worked. The communication system activated, and Admiral Zeftara's crystalline features appeared on the screen. Even through the translation matrix, her distress was clear. Colonel Go, she said, I must protest your latest tactical recommendations. Using civilian ships as decoys, accepting 50% casualty rates for boarding actions, ordering retreats that leave wounded behind, these methods violate every principle of civilized warfare. Minsu had been expecting this conversation. Admiral, civilized warfare is what the Devourers are expecting. They've studied Federation tactics for 3 centuries. They know exactly how you think and fight. But the cost in lives will be less than total extinction, Minsu interrupted. Admiral, with respect. Your people have never faced an enemy that wanted to completely destroy you. You've fought territorial disputes and resource conflicts. The Devourers aren't interested in conquest or negotiation. They want to consume every living thing in the galaxy. Zeftara was quiet for a moment. Colonel, how does your species live with such brutal calculations? We learned that sometimes the only way to save lives is to be willing to sacrifice them, Minsu replied. It's not about being cruel. It's about understanding what victory actually costs. Before Zeftara could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the fleet. The long-range sensors had detected the Devourer advance force. Here they come, Minsu said grimly. The first wave of Devourer ships emerged from hyperspace like a black tide. Thousands of sleek organic vessels moved in perfect coordination, their hulls shifting and changing as they approached the defense line. Federation sensors counted over 10,000 individual craft, each one uniquely adapted for its role in the coming battle. Admiral, signal the fleet, Minsu ordered. All ships implement Protocol 7. Protocol 7 was pure human doctrine. Appear weak, draw the enemy into overconfidence, then strike with overwhelming force at their weakest point. It was the kind of deception that Federation commanders found distasteful but effective. The Federation ships began what appeared to be a panicked retreat, breaking formation and fleeing toward the inner system. Several vessels even transmitted false distress signals, claiming engine failures and requesting assistance. The Devourers took the bait. Their lead ships accelerated, breaking their own formation to pursue what they perceived as easy targets. The organic vessels split their forces, some chasing the retreating Federation fleet while others moved to secure the outer system. Now, Minsu whispered. Major Ryu Sunwoo led the first strike from his position behind Kepler's largest moon. 300 human and human-trained Federation fighters erupted from concealment, moving in attack patterns that no Federation pilot had ever used before. Instead of the careful, measured approach that alien forces favored, the fighters dove directly into enemy formations at maximum speed. They fired everything they had, ignored return fire that would have forced Federation pilots to retreat, and continued their attacks even when their own ships were heavily damaged. The Devourers, who had adapted to fight cautious, defensive-minded enemies, found themselves facing opponents who seemed to have no regard for their own survival. "Look at that," breathed one of Minsu's tactical officers, watching the display as a human pilot continued firing, even as his fighter's hull collapsed around him. But the real shock came when Major Ryu's pilots began using maneuvers that defied both physics and sanity. They flew through debris fields that should have destroyed them, used gravity wells to slingshot into impossible attack angles, and coordinated their movements with a precision that spoke of countless hours of training in Earth's harsh conditions. The Devourer formation, which had never been broken in 3 centuries of warfare, began to collapse. "Boarding teams, launch now," Minsu ordered. Sergeant Kim Da-yoon's voice came over the communication system, calm despite the chaos around her. "Copy that, Colonel. Teams Alpha through Echo are launching." Kim led her Marines in modified assault shuttles that looked nothing like the peaceful Federation designs they'd started with. These craft bristled with weapons, carried breaching charges, and were built to survive impacts that would destroy normal ships. The Federation commanders watched in horror and fascination as human Marines did something no one had ever attempted. They boarded Devourer vessels while the battle was still raging. "Sergeant Kim, what's your status?" Minsu asked as her shuttle disappeared into the hull of a massive Devourer construct. "We're inside," Kim replied, and the sounds of weapons fire could be heard in the background. "These things are more machine than ship, Colonel. But they have weak points." For 20 minutes, Kim's team fought through corridors that shifted and changed around them. The Devourer ship tried to adapt to their presence, growing new defenses and obstacles. But human Marines had trained in environments that changed constantly. Urban warfare, ship-to-ship combat, and the ever-changing conditions of Earth's diverse battlefields. "Charges placed," Kim reported. Extracting now. The Devourer ship exploded from within just as Kim's team reached their extraction point. It was the first Devourer vessel destroyed by boarding action in the species' known history, but the celebration was short-lived. "Colonel," reported the sensor operator, "new contacts emerging from hyperspace. This signature is different." On the main display, a single Devourer ship appeared. It was smaller than the others, sleeker, and it moved with a precision that made Minsu's blood run cold. "That's not just another ship," he said quietly. "That's something new." The vessel, which human intelligence would later designate as the Adaptive, moved through the battle with careful precision. It observed human fighter tactics, studied the boarding actions, and analyzed every aspect of the new warfare it was witnessing. Then it began to change. The Adaptive's hull shifted, developing new armor configurations that deflected human weapons. Its movement patterns altered to counter the aggressive fighter tactics that had worked so well against other Devourers. Most troubling of all, it began transmitting data to the rest of the Devourer fleet. "They're learning," Minsu said. "They're studying how we fight and adapting in real time." Admiral Zeftara's image appeared on his screen. "Colonel, our victory may be temporary, if they can counter our new tactics as quickly as they countered ours." Minsu nodded grimly. "Then we need to evolve faster than they can adapt." The battle continued for 6 more hours. Human forces achieved victories that should have been impossible, destroying Devourer ships that had seemed invincible. But with each success, the Adaptive learned more, and the enemy's responses became more effective. When the Devourer fleet finally retreated, both sides had learned valuable lessons. The Federation had discovered that their new human allies could achieve miracles through tactics that bordered on madness. The Devourers had learned that their ancient enemy had found new champions. But the Adaptive had learned something more dangerous: how to kill humans. Status report. Minsu ordered as the last enemy ships disappeared into hyperspace. Devourer losses: 47 ships destroyed, hundreds more damaged, came the reply. Our losses: 31 vessels, over 2,000 casualties. By Federation standards, it was a catastrophic loss of life. By human standards, it was a miracle. "Colonel," Admiral Zeftara said quietly, "your people fought like nothing I've ever witnessed, but I fear this was only the beginning." Minsu looked at the tactical display where the Adaptive's flight path was already being analyzed. "You're right, Admiral. Now they know we can hurt them. The question is, can we keep hurting them faster than they can learn to stop us?" In the depths of space, the Adaptive rejoined the main Devourer fleet, carrying with it detailed analysis of human warfare. For the first time in its existence, the Devourer Collective faced an enemy that might actually pose a threat. It was time to deploy weapons that had never been needed before. The real war was about to begin. Admiral Han Ji-young stood in the command center of the massive Federation fleet, watching the final approach to the Devourer home system. Around her, representatives from 47 different species worked alongside human officers, their different forms and perspectives united by a single desperate purpose: survival. "Admiral," reported her communications officer, "Captain Lee Soo-young confirms that Strike Group Alpha is in position. They're ready to begin the assault on the central hive." Ji-young nodded, but her attention was focused on Dr. Shin Youngman, who stood at a nearby console analyzing the latest intelligence reports. The human psychologist had spent weeks studying Devourer behavior patterns, looking for weaknesses that went beyond the physical. "Doctor, what's your assessment?" she asked. Shin looked up from his data. "Admiral, I think we've been approaching this war wrong from the beginning. Everyone, including us, has been thinking about this as a military conflict. But it's not." "Explain." "The Devourers aren't just predators," Shin said, activating a holographic display. "They're order incarnate. They represent perfect efficiency, perfect adaptation, perfect control. Every species they've encountered has either fled in terror or fought with predictable, logical patterns." Ji-young frowned. "And that's significant because?" "Because humans represent chaos," Shin replied. "We're the species that survived by being unpredictable, by thriving in disorder, by finding strength in adversity instead of being broken by it." Before Ji-young could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the fleet. The Devourer home system's defenses had detected their approach. "Admiral, massive energy signatures detected throughout the system," reported the sensor operator. "The Devourers have been waiting for us." Through the main display, Ji-young could see the truth of that statement. Thousands of Devourer constructs filled the space between planets, but these were unlike anything they had faced before. Each ship was unique, specifically adapted to counter the tactics humans had used in previous battles. At the center of it all, surrounding a dark planet that pulsed with malevolent energy, were the largest Devourer constructs anyone had ever seen. And at their heart was something that made even seasoned human commanders pause. The Prime Core, the original devourer consciousness that had spawned all the others. "They've been studying us," Ji-young said quietly. "Every tactic, every strategy, every move we've made. They're ready for everything we might try." "Not everything," said a voice from the communication system. Captain Lee Soo-young appeared on the screen, her face set with grim determination. "Admiral, Strike Group Alpha is beginning our approach to the Prime Core. We know this is probably a one-way mission." Ji-young felt the weight of command settle on her shoulders. Soo-young's small fleet of volunteers was flying directly into the most heavily defended system in the galaxy, and they all knew the odds of survival were essentially zero. "Captain, you don't have to do this," Ji-young said. "We can find another way." Soo-young smiled sadly. "Admiral, there is no other way. The Devourers have adapted to everything except one thing: humans who know they're going to die and fight anyway." The strike group began their run toward the system's center. Immediately, the Devourer defenses opened fire with weapons specifically designed to counter human ship designs and movement patterns. The adapted vessels had studied human tactics for months and believed they could predict and counter any possible attack. They were wrong. Instead of using the aggressive, direct assault tactics that had worked in previous battles, Soo-young's ships scattered in seemingly random directions. Some headed for asteroid fields, others dove toward gas giant atmospheres, and a few even appeared to be retreating from the system entirely. "What is she doing?" asked Admiral Zeftara, who was observing from her own command ship. Dr. Shin was watching the tactical display with growing amazement. "She's doing something no rational commander would ever do. She's giving up every tactical advantage and making herself look weak and desperate." "But why?" "Because," Shin said slowly, "the Devourers have never faced an enemy that could win by losing." The truth of his words became clear as the seemingly chaotic retreat drew more and more Devourer forces out of their defensive positions. The alien constructs programmed to pursue and destroy fleeing enemies began chasing Soo-young's ships throughout the system. But as they spread out to corner the scattered human vessels, gaps began appearing in their defensive formations. "Now I understand," Ji-young whispered. "She's not running away. She's opening a path." Soo-young's voice came over the communication system, calm despite the desperate battle raging around her. "All ships, this is Captain Lee. The road home is through hell, but the road to hell passes right through their defenses. Strike Group Beta, you have your opening." A second wave of human ships led by Colonel Go Min-soo erupted from concealment behind the system's outermost planet. While the Devourers were busy chasing Soo-young's fleeing forces, Min-soo's ships drove straight toward the Prime Core with everything they had. The Devourer response was immediate, but confused. Their adapted tactics assumed humans would continue the same patterns they had used before. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to have abandoned all logic and strategy. "This is impossible," transmitted the adaptive as it tried to coordinate the defense. "Their actions make no tactical sense. They are sacrificing strategic positions for no apparent gain." But Dr. Shin understood what the Devourers couldn't. "They think in terms of efficiency and adaptation," he said to Admiral Ji-young. "They can't comprehend a species that finds strength in sacrifice, that gets stronger when things look hopeless." The battle raged for hours. Captain Soo-young's strike group was decimated, their ships destroyed one by one as they led the Devourers away from critical positions. Colonel Min-soo's assault group fought through defenses that should have been impenetrable, losing ship after ship but never stopping their advance. Finally, with only a handful of ships remaining, Soo-young's voice came over the communication system one last time. Her ship was badly damaged, life support failing, but her voice was steady. "Admiral Ji-young, this is Captain Lee. We've done all we can do. The path is clear, but not for long. If you're going to do this, do it now." Ji-young activated the fleet-wide communication system. "All ships, this is Admiral Han. Begin final assault. Remember, we're not just fighting for the Federation. We're fighting for the right of chaotic, imperfect, stubborn life to exist in an ordered universe." The entire Federation fleet, led by human commanders and inspired by human courage, charged toward the Prime Core. The Devourers, still trying to adapt to tactics that seemed to change every few minutes, found themselves overwhelmed not by superior firepower or strategy, but by an enemy that simply refused to accept defeat. The final battle took place in the shadow of the Prime Core itself. Admiral Ji-young led the last assault personally. her ship diving directly into the massive construct's central chamber, while Devourer forces tried desperately to stop her. In those final moments, as her ship's hull began to collapse under the strain, Ji-young found herself face to face with the intelligence that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries. The Prime Core spoke, its voice filling her ship's communication system. "Why do you persist? You cannot win. Adaptation will overcome all resistance." Ji-young smiled as she prepared to activate the antimatter charges that would destroy both ships. "That's where you're wrong. You've spent so long adapting to overcome challenges that you forgot the most important thing about life." "What is that?" "Sometimes the best adaptation is learning how to be strong enough not to need to adapt," she replied. "Sometimes the answer isn't becoming something new. Sometimes the answer is being stubborn enough to stay exactly what you are." The explosion that followed could be seen from the edge of the system. The Prime Core, the ancient intelligence that had spawned the Devourer threat, was destroyed along with Admiral Ji-young and the last of her fleet. But their sacrifice had achieved something impossible. Without the Prime Core's guiding intelligence, the remaining Devourer constructs began to turn on each other, their perfect coordination replaced by chaos and conflict. 3 days later, Unity spokesperson Elthis stood before the combined Federation Council and the surviving human delegation. The chamber was filled with representatives from species that had never expected to survive the week, let alone see the total defeat of their ancient enemy. "The galaxy owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid," Elthis said. "You have shown us that strength is not about adapting to every challenge. Sometimes true strength is about being so fundamentally stubborn, so impossibly resilient, that you force the universe to adapt to you instead." Director Wan Taewan, now the senior human representative, stood to address the assembly. "The Federation asked us why humans are the galaxy's strongest warriors. The answer isn't our physical capabilities or our weapons technology." "Then what is it?" asked High Arbiter Quintal. One looked around the chamber at faces, alien and human alike, marked by loss but strengthened by survival. "We're the strongest warriors because we're the only species that learned how to lose everything and keep fighting anyway. We're evolution's answer to the impossible question, what do you do when adaptation isn't enough?" 6 months later, the galaxy had indeed changed.